Hello YouTube. Some names in the Russian language also contain a lot of secrets. For example, there is a name which is actually in Sanskrit, the language of ancient India, and it's the name of the village of Rajya in the Batetsky district of the Novgorod region. The permanent population of this village is about 26 people. Let me tell you where it's located. It's important. It's on the right bank of the Luga River and on the right bank of its tributary Rurik, at the altitude of 54 meters above the sea level, west of the village of Niva and south of the village of Preobrazhenka. Now, Rajya is a word that's familiar to a lot of people. Rajya is a ruler in India, and Raj is a very popular Indian name. Well, this word comes from the Sanskrit root Raj, which means to be the head of something, as well as to shine and to sparkle. From the same root, the word Rajana, silver. It is amazing that a village with this name is located in the heart of Russia. And it's not a modern name. The village of Rajya is very ancient. There are mentions of it in the annals from the year 1500. In the Batetsky district, there are places covered with legends where amazing things from antiquity are constantly found. They literally lie on the surface. There are especially many of them along the banks of the Luga River. There's also the so-called Shum Gara, or Noise Mountain, or Mountain of the Noise, whichever you like. This is an ancient mound that has not been excavated really until now. According to legends, it contains a golden coffin with the body of Rurik himself. Well, this mound, now it is a cult place where lovers of antiquity and pagans gather. And many of them are looking for ancient artifacts here, and they find them. Including, for example, this stone with a mysterious inscription. Look at the photo. See if you can decipher it. We will look at the stone or stela and the mountain a little later. As for Rurik of Ladega, also Rurik in Slavic, I think in ancient Icelandic or Norwegian would be Rurik. In Belarusian it's Rurik, in Ukrainian Rurik. Well, he lived, as far as we know, between the years of 824 to 879. And that's according to the 12th century primary chronicle. He was the Varangian or Viking chieftain of the ancient Rus, who in the year 1862 was invited to reign in the city of Novgorod. The legendary figure is considered to be the founder of the Rurikid dynasty, which ruled Ladega, Novgorod, and ultimately the Kievan Rus and its successor states. So that's how I am related to him, through Kiev of the ancient Rus. I don't want to say ancient Russia because that's not what it was, but it was a state called Rus. His family apparently established it, and the former Vikings took local young women to be their wives, and I'm sure for other needs too. Except my ancestors came to the area about 1,000 years later. The only surviving information about Rurik is contained in the 12th century primary chronicle written by Nestor, which states that the Chuj, the Eastern Slavs, the Marias, the Vas, and the Krivich drove the Varangians or Vikings back beyond the sea, refused to pay them tribute, and set out to govern themselves. Afterwards, the tribes started fighting each other and decided to invite the Varangians or Vikings led by Rurik to re-establish order, basically to rule over them, to put it in simple but straightforward words. So Rurik came in about 860 to 862 along with his brothers Sinios and Truvor and a large retinue. Well, my audience, so to say, already knows that the Chuj is a somewhat mysterious people who populated the Russian north and the Urals, and they vanished, most likely in the underground realms. See my video on the subject, please. It's very interesting. Now, the Novgorod land preserves many ancient monuments. Every year, valuable evidence of a bygone era, things or documents that tell a lot about the history of the country are found here. Jewelry, antique coins, and much, much more. But all this pales, when you compare with the search for something that truly has enormous significance. The grave of Prince Rurik is what haunts many archaeologists and enthusiasts. There are a number of hypotheses and legends put forward where the founder of the dynasty of the Russian Tsars may be buried. Someone says that he rests in Staraya Ladoga. Someone says that in the area of the Korela fortress in Priozorsk. The most beautiful is the legend that the prince is buried at the bottom of Ladoga, Lake Ladoga, in a golden sarcophagus. But recently the hypothesis is increasingly heard that the true grave of Rurik is located on the famous Peredorsky churchyard in a unique mound called Noise Mountain, Shum Gora. Well, Peredorsky churchyard has long been known to archaeologists. In the area located between the villages of Podgorya and Zapolya of the Potetsky district of the Novgorod region, on the banks of the Luga River, residents of the surrounding villages have constantly come across and continue to come across interesting finds. Archaeologists of the century before were last engaged in excavations here, collecting local legends. According to research, an ancient city was located here 1 millennium ago, one of the most important craft and trade centers of the Novgorod region. As archaeologists claim, this city or settlement perished in a huge fire. Another unique feature of the Peredorsky churchyard is that there are 7 mounds on it, which are clearly the creation of human hands. Many stones with traces of human influence are also found on the territory of the churchyard. In the vicinity of the Podgorya, several dozen cult stones, boulders, were found with images of people and gods. It turned out that the sacrificial large stones have a direct connection with the mounds, kurgan in Russian, is how we call mounds. Usually such stones are located near the sanctuaries where the most notable people are buried. One of the most famous mounds is the famous Noise Mountain. This is a unique structure, the largest mound of the Middle Ages in Europe. It is even larger than the famous Swedish royal mounds, where according to legend the gods Thor and Odin are buried. The height of the Noise Mountain is 14.6 meters and the diameter is 70 meters. In its structure, the mound resembles a ziggurat, a tiered pyramid. So not only ancient India is tied to the small Russian village, but now ancient Mesopotamia too. The mound is called Noise Mountain because according to local legends, crying sounds are heard from the top of the mound on autumn and rainy days. According to other legends, standing on the mountain, you can hear how the service is held in the church, located a few kilometers from here. And some legends generally claim that there is a church right in the mountain, which was buried together with people, and since then there has been an eternal service. In general, these places are replete with folklore legends. The locals have a mystical attitude to this mountain. They claim that it is impossible to make noise, shout, jump, and generally disturb the shadows of their ancestors. They say, by the way, that alcoholics and generally parasites, speaking about people, did not take root in the surrounding villages. They were not able to survive for long. Someone crashed in a tractor, someone committed suicide, someone disappeared from their home, and one person who cut down a Christmas tree on the top immediately fell ill and died in agony. I'm assuming that they meant the mound. This respectful attitude to the Noise Mountain has been going on since the most ancient times. The hill has been a cult place of the cults. There are memories of how All Saints' Day was solemnly celebrated here, which falls on the next Sunday after Trinity. On this day there was a procession to the Noise Mountain. According to the stories of old-timers, before World War II, priests held a service at the top of the hill and read prayers. We'll get to another episode that took place about the same time. According to the same local legends, it is the mountain that the Rurik grave is located in. This is how the legends talked about it. There was a battle in late fall on the northern bank of the Luga. Rurik was seriously wounded and died. It was cold, the ground was frozen, his body was covered with stones. There were 12 people with him. In the spring, Rurik's body was moved across the river to the southern bank of the river, where it was buried in a large mound in a golden coffin, and with it 40 barrels of silver coins. They buried him with a horse and a gilded saddle. Together with him, these 12 people were buried with their heads in a circle. Scientists believe that the Noise Mountain is a complex ritual structure. If there really is a burial of an influential person inside it, then he should lie in the center of the mound, and in different directions from him, like rays emanating from the sun, would lie his warriors. The burial is most likely carefully lined with huge stones, in the crown of which there are ritual stones arranged in this strictly defined sequence. By the way, according to some researchers, the Noise Mountain sounds come from the fact that with a strong wind, air flows pass through the stone maze inside and create a noise effect. Interestingly, there is a legend that in this part, similar to the legend of the grave of Tamerlan or Timur in Uzbekistan, that one cannot open this mound, otherwise there will be trouble. They say that in 1941, an official expedition was sent to the Shumgara, Noise Mountain, and they began work on the excavation, but then the war broke out. So you see the connection. Recently, Shumgara has been strongly associated with the names of brothers Sergei and Mikhail Alexashin. A few years ago, they purchased a house in these places and gradually became seriously interested in the mystery of Rurik's grave. In addition to searching for the prince's burial, the Alexashins are constantly looking for unique evidence of the past in these places, and they find them in abundance. So they found Arab coins, dirhams of the 9th century, signet rings, brooches, battle axes, and much more. All findings are taken into the account by a representative of official science. In addition, work was carried out on the Noise Mountain itself. In 2002, the mound was studied using ground-penetrating radar. It was discovered that there is a stone structure in the center of the base of the hill. And in 2003 and 2004, seismographic studies were carried out, which confirmed the presence of several objects inside. Now, Stelae, or occasionally Stela, when there is a word that, when derived from Latin, means is a stone or wooden slab, generally taller than it is wide, erected in the ancient world as a monument. The surface of the stela often has text, ornamentation, or both. This may be inscribed, carved in relief, or painted. In May 2003, a stela was found on the Alexashina hill, during the excavation of which it turned out that it rests on another boulder with its base. There's a mysterious inscription on this stela. Mikhail and Alexander believe that these are the tombstones of Rurik, and the inscription clearly indicates this. Official science initially put forward a hypothesis that, in fact, These stones were laid at the beginning of the 20th century, and the inscription means the year when it happened, 1915. But this hypothesis was refuted. Local legends documented back in the 19th century talked about these stones. The disputes do not stop, and the Noise Mountain research continues, and more mysteries are added to the disputes. Stones with signs and a hole in the historical literature on the Pridorsky churchyard are mentioned more than once. There are diaries that describe the flat boulder on which a cross is carved with a hole in the middle and whose lower end is bent, as it were. However, the author Stelae described the already destroyed stone, and he only assumed the initial configuration of the sign. This stone was on the burial ground near the village Stelae, or the column in English, located 11 kilometers east of the Noise Mountain. There was also a chapel in which there was an ancient icon of John the Baptist. The peasants, after the prayer service at the Noise Mountain, went in a procession to the Stelae's burial ground. According to the peasants, some Tsar or king was buried under this stone with a cross. So there were two such stones. Look at the photograph. According to the author, the images on both stones represent a secular monogram. By the nature of writing and the composition of the signs characteristic of the monograms of the Carolingian family, and very similar in design to the monograms of King Lothair I, Louis the German, Charles the Bold, and Emperor Louis or Louis the Pious. When this inscription on the stones is rotated 180 degrees from the Noise Mountain or mound, a word arises that should be read as the old High German noun Sigi, meaning case unit number, or Old English Sigga, and an ancient South Icelandic Sigur, meaning victory. According to the Stelae's hypothesis, granite boulders with signs found at the top of the Noise Mountain are boundary signs on which a monogram is stamped. A generic facsimile sign of the counts of Rurik, the rulers of the county of Maine, of the kingdom of Aquitaine of the 9th century. So you see, it doesn't become any easier. By the way, if a burial is really found in the Shum Gara or Noise Mountain, then scientists promise to conduct a molecular examination of the remains of distant ancestors and compare them with the genetic code of the Rurik clan, whose remains rest in the Moscow Kremlin. But when and who will be able to find out the secret of the Noise Mountain is still unknown. Now let me tell you about the surrounding land. The Novgorod Oblast, it's like a federal subject of Russia called Oblast. It's an administrative center of the city of the Veliki Novgorod, or Novgorod the Great. Some of the oldest Russian cities, including Veliki Novgorod and Staraya Russa, are located in the Oblast. The historic monuments of Veliki Novgorod and surroundings have been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Towards the end of the 15th century, the democratic and prosperous Novgorod was defeated by the army of Ivan III, the Prince of Moscow, and was included in the Grand Duchy of Moscow. In 1560, Ivan the Terrible, for his reasons, claiming treason, sent his army to sack the city, to kill and enslave its population. This event, known as the Massacre of Novgorod, had catastrophic consequences for the city, which lost the majority of its population and never recovered. Would have been better if Novgorod, the prosperous city, democratic, city of hope, would have survived. But instead, it was the Moscow with the legacy of the Mongol Empire and invasions, they won. Anyway, the archaeological excavations in Novgorod and Staraya Russa unearthed over 1,000 of birch bark manuscripts used mostly to document various business issues. Although the beings you can see on one of the bark manuscripts do not look to be business people to me, why don't you make your own guess? Now, currently these manuscripts serve as the main source on the everyday life in the ancient Russia. Many medieval chronicles originate from Novgorod. The first one being the Novgorod First Chronicle, which covers the period between 1016 and 1471. In 14th century, the Slavic Nordic pirates, Ushkuyniks, spread in the Russian north and later in many other regions of ancient Russia and so forth. Tough guys, similar to English pirates sent by the British monarchs to promote empire overseas and so on. So nothing is new under the sun. As for Rajya, let me assure you that the Russian language and India's Sanskrit have common words, and more has been found in Russia pertaining to ancient India. Some of the findings I'll describe later in later videos. Now, those who are interested in my research of possible connections of ancient India and its underwater races of demons and other beings, connections to the lands that now comprise Russia, will have to look at my video. The link is in the description to this video. And of course, it has also to do with the Lake Baikal. There is much more to discover in the Novgorod Oblast. If only the money spent for wars would instead be spent on archaeology. Imagine the discoveries we would have. Next time, I'll tell you about the treasures at the bottom of Lake Ladoga and also its strange cryptids. But if you like history of ancient Vikings, I have to tell you one day about a discovery on a very interesting Ukrainian island. I myself was there in 1970. My father took me there on a motorboat, and he talked to local archaeologists who let me enter the underground dwelling of the ancient Greek colony, which was thriving on that island many centuries ago. Well, 1,000 years after the Greeks, Vikings visited the island and left something there. But that's for another time. So if you like my research, please support me through the links you can find in the description to this video. Please subscribe to my channel, please like it, and please tell others. Thank you.